Hi everyone, this is Mona. We're going to go ahead and get started. Today we are covering EDI for Allocation / Inforem, the Sears / Kmart. Real quick, I would like for you to test out your chat feature. If you can hear me and you can see the presentation, please type the following information: your location and your flow path. It could be DC, JIT, B2S. For example, Antioch, Illinois, B2S. So if you could go ahead and type that information, I'm going to come back to that in just another slide or two. We will be recording today's webinar, and I will send out the video link as well as the PowerPoint to those who are attending later today. As a reminder, if you could please put your phone on mute when you're not speaking, that would be greatly appreciated. It really helps cut down on the background noise. If you are listening to the audio directly from your computer instead of calling in, be sure to mute your computer's microphone. This helps to minimize background noise for all participants. You can access your computer's microphone options. If you don't know where to access it, you can go to the Control Panel, Sound, Recording tab. Please wait to audibly ask questions until designated times. Roy will ask at several places if anyone has any questions. Please remember to keep questions on topic and minimal. But please feel free to submit questions at any time using the chat. So I did ask you to test out the chat feature, and it doesn't look like anyone has tested it out. Can you guys confirm that you can hear me? Anybody? I just want to make sure that you guys can hear me before we continue. Oh, okay. Actually, I see it. I just didn't. It's not showing up on my second computer. I do apologize. All right. So I do see there's Christy in Elkin, North Carolina. She's JIT. Morris Dubinoin and Hopkins Manufacturing Company. Thanks for confirming that you could hear me. Sorry about that. And Dee Dee is in Clara City, Minnesota with DC. Anybody else that's on, can you let us know what flow type you are? That kind of helps Roy with his presentation, because if there's parts of his presentation that doesn't apply to anybody, then he won't have to spend time on it, and he can just focus on what's applicable to you.
This is Ralph Travis with Perfect Timing. I'm just new, so feel free.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. I'm going to get back to the presentation. So if we go through and we're not able to answer your questions, either we miss it in the chat or you weren't able to ask it clearly or needed to provide some more details, please feel free to email vendoruniversity@searshca.com. We'll dig in with those details that you provide or locate who can more fully answer your question. I'm going to pass it off to Roy now, and he's going to continue on with the presentation for today.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Roy Buenaventura. I'm the EDI System Manager for Sears and Kmart. So basically, I handle all EDI for the Sears order writing system and the Kmart order writing system. All right, so our objective today is basically I'm going to present to you what EDI documents Kmart is requiring all of its vendor. You know that Kmart will require all its vendor to be EDI compliant. Okay, we're going to talk about the timing of when orders are being sent to vendors, how to contact my group for support. The two flow paths that we're going to talk about today is the DC stock and JIT, and I know that I've seen at least two vendors that has this flow path. Also, we'll talk about the best practice of how you guys are going to send the 810 and the 856. And also, the most important one, if you ever receive an error with your 810 and 856, on how to fix it or how to interpret the errors. Okay, so let's start with the basic EDI for Sears. So all EDI processes are being handled by our EDI system, which is now in-house. Before it was outsourced, but we brought it all back in-house. Our current van is Liaison, which is formerly called New Bridges. All right. So in this slide is all the required documents for doing business with Kmart. So there's multiple documents, the 850, which is the PO, the 860, the 810, the 856, the 820, and the 812. So those are the 6 that are all required. They're all mandatory EDI documents in dealing with Kmart. Kmart has 2 different EDI IDs depending on what the EDI documents are. If you can see, the first 4 are basically the invoice, PO change, ASNs, and the PO itself, which is from my qualifier 8. My EDI ID is at 92542910001. My financial documents are being sent from a different EDI ID, which is that 09006985290 EFT. So when you're setting up on your side, you have to know which EDI documents will be coming from or being sent to what EDI ID. All right, and this one is just basically giving you of what time we're sending out orders. For DC and JIT, we only send orders once a day, and that's around 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we only process our purchase orders in batch, which is at night or early morning, and we only send out PO only once a day. All right. Now for the 856, 856 is almost a real time to us. Okay. You guys, when the vendor sends us an 856 to their van, I usually get it in the same minute that my van received it. And we process 856 every 15 minutes. So if you take a look at it, it's probably an hour or an hour and a half from your system to reach down to my DC where the ASN will be used. So that's the closest real time that we can get on our side because, again, our processes are in batch. Now on the 810, it's a little bit longer because it's basically scheduled afternoon of every single day. And if you miss that batch, it's going to be processed the following day. And all of our vendors are in terms, so a 1-2 day delay on processing the 810 will really don't do anything on the terms. It will still be paid on the agreed upon terms. All right. So this slide will be shown to you multiple times, but here are the contacts if there's any issues with any of POs or anything regarding EDI or invoices. Here are all the contact emails and the phone number that you need to contact. We just ask you that if you're going to send us an email, if you can provide us the vendor name, your order duns, your sender receiver ID, the ISO control number, and any other details that you can provide so we can basically look at what issues and we can resolve it in a timely manner. But this one is just basically pictures of see how all the EDI documents flow. I mean, you see, your building, which is called the vendor, the SHC system, which document flows from the vendor to us or from us to you guys. I mean, you also see that the 856 is being sent to the RDC or the DCs. Do you guys have any questions? So now let's talk about the EDI 850 for DC stock. So what you're seeing now is the raw EDI 850. I mean, I don't know if you guys are on the EDI department or when you guys look at the PO, it's already been translated. But this is the raw file that's being sent from my system to your EDI system. So I know most companies will have an EDI group that will translate this file into a more readable format. So I just want to point out, so in this raw EDI 850, if you look at my mouse, the BEG segment, this is element 3. This is the PO number, the DC PO number. So for DC stock, this will always be 11 digits. And if we're going to look at the breakdown, the first 5 digits will be a 08273. The first 5 digits will always be the DC number or the DC unit number. Okay, and then there's more data that's coming. I'm just going to point out the most important one. The next one is the REFIA. It will contain your order DUNS number. The N1ST, it will contain the DC DUNS and the 4-digit unit number. If you see the last 4 digit in the N1ST, it will be 8273. It will always match the BEGO3 of 8273. That means that this PO needs to be shipped to my DC 8273. Okay, the next important one is this N1RE. This is your pay DUNS number that we assign to your company. Most of the time, this will be your Dun & Bradstreet number, but sometimes maybe not. But I want to say 99% of the time, it will match your Dun & Bradstreet number. This is important because you need to send this in your 856 and your 810. So whatever is in the 850 needs to be returned back to those 2 documents. The next one is just the PO line, PO1, which is basically our line items. We're telling you we're ordering 192. The unit measures in eaches. Okay, and then I'm sending you the IN and a 9-digit KSN number. So this is the Kmart internal item number, which is required to be sent back on the 856 and the 810 also. And then next to that is the UK and a 14-digit. This is the G1014. All DC stock will have this 14-digit G10 number, and this needs to be returned in the EDI 856. Also, your labels, your carton labels, need to match this number for the DC to receive their shipment. If any of those, if the 856 and your label doesn't match, it's gonna result to a chargeback to your company. Because basically, when the DC receive that box, in their system, that label doesn't exist. That means that we didn't order that carton. So they need to open it and basically look what's in it before they can receive it. The next is the PO4. This will tell you how many should be packed in a carton. So if it's this particular example, it says there's 12 in a box, but there's 3 inners. So basically, there's 3 inners, there's 4 in those inners. But it has to be always be packed in this multiple. Okay, the next example, you can, my 2 unit of measures either in each or in cases. That's the only unit of measure that Kmart uses. Okay, any questions on the EDI 850 for DC stock? Okay, let's go to the ASN for DC stock. So there's multiple kind of ASN structure that we support on the Kmart side. The first one is the no-pack ASN structure. This is the most simplest ASN structure that you guys can use. I mean, if you know you're going to be a DC stock, I suggest that you guys use this no-pack ASN. So here's an example of a Kmart 856 no-pack for DC stock. So first key on this ASN is that BSN05. There's a code in the EDI standard for an ASN that says that if it's a 0004, it's a no-pack ASN. If you're going to send me a no-pack ASN, I have to have this code correctly sent because my system checks this. If it's any other than a 4, then it will reject because it doesn't match the EDI standards. Okay. Next is we request that you guys always send a PER segment, which is basically a contact information. So if there's any issue with your ASN, we know who to contact easily. So basically, we wanted you to send at least a generic email address for your EDI support and a telephone number where we can reach someone if there's an issue with your ASN. I mean, if your ASN rejects the first time, we will not charge you until you correct it, until you send us a corrected ASN. Now, if we never receive our corrected ASN, then the chargeback will be imposed. Okay. Next one is the N1SF. The N1SF is the ship from. The N1SF04 is your pay dunce number. So back in the 850, it was sent on another N1 segment. It just needs to be returned in the 856 as the ship from location. Okay. And then the next one is the N1ST. Again, the N1ST was sent in the 850, so you just have to return it back in the 856. So most of our data are being sent in the purchase order. It's just a matter of you guys returning the same data back to me. So we don't have an issue with your ASN. Same as the PRF. Came from the 850, whatever is sent, we need it back. And then on the LIN, which is our item loops, you should see that's the same thing. The IN has the 9-digit KSN number. The UK that has the 14-digit shipping G10. Both of these data are mandatory. So whatever is sent in the 850, we need it back the same way in the 856. Okay, and the last one is the SN1, which is basically what you guys ship. It should always be matched while what's ordered, but for some reason, maybe you guys are short. You have to tell us how many you're shipping in your ASN, and it has to match of how many RDCs will receive. The other structure that we support is a pick and pack structure. Okay, the pick and pack structure means that you're giving me or you're assigning a UCC 128 label for each of your carton. So let me go back one slide. If you look at the HLN, the HL, HL1S, which is shipment, HL2 order, and HL item. So basically a no-pack is a shipment, order, item structure. So that's the only three things that you see on that ASN. If I go down to the next one, this is a pick and pack. So if we would try to go that one, you will see the same thing. HLS, your shipment level, the order level. Now this is the new one, which is the pack level, and then another one, an item. So basically the only difference is you're issuing a GS or a UCC 128 label for each of your cartons. And your ship quantity should be per carton. So let's go back to the other one. So the ship quantity on the no pack is the total quantity of that entire PL. When you go to a pick and pack structure, you will give me, let's say the order quantity is 100. There's 10 eaches in a carton. I should see 10 loops of the item that has 10 ship quantity in each. Which basically you're telling me I'm giving you 10 cartons of quantity of 10. So this ASN structure is going to be much longer, much bigger, because you've provided me more data in it than the no-pack ASN. And again, you got two options. And I know most of our vendors has already a pick and pack structure in their system. If you want to go with pick and pack, that's fine, as long as you, again, provide me with the correct data. Okay, any questions on the 856? Okay, sometimes when we've issued you a purchase order, there will be changes being made by the inventory team. And when that happens, we will send you an EDI 860. Okay, so there's kind of changes on the order level will be the ship date, or if we're canceling the PO. We can also change data on the item level. It can be if we ordered 5 items and we only cancel 1, we can sell you a cancellation for that 1 item. We can add or delete a shipping G10 or a UPC. We can also change pack quantities. We can also increase and decrease quantities. So everything is explained in my EDI guidelines. So there's codes like this POC02, which is DI. It can be delete items, it can be add items, it could be increase items. So it's all in my EDI guidelines, which you guys will have access to, or we already have access to through vendor portal. But again, not all purchase orders will have an 860. Only the ones that the inventory team changes for any reason that they probably have. Okay, so now let's go back. Let's go now to the EDI 810. So EDI 810 is the invoice. Okay, I mean, this is important on your side because without an EDI 810, we will never pay you for those shipments. And without an accurate EDI 810, either we're not going to pay you correctly or we're going to do some deductions if you guys send us the wrong 810. So on the 810, again, it will contain the PO number that was sent in the EDI 850. We request that you guys, again, send your EDI contact, so if there's any errors with your EDI 810, we know who to contact. Okay, now, N1, both N1 ST and N1 RE needs to be sent in the 810, and this was sent in the EDI 850 also. So again, whatever was sent, send it back so you don't have any issue. You send us your 24 is your ordered quantity, invoice quantity, which hopefully will match your ship quantity, and the IN and the Kmart 9-digit KSN number. You can also send me the shipping G10 or the UPC if that was sent in the EDI 850. Okay, any questions on the 810 or the 860? Okay, so what we talked about is all for DC stock. Okay, the next flow path will be the JIT flow path. It will be a little bit close to the DC, except a few things that will change, especially on the PO number. Okay, for JIT or just in time, it's basically you guys are shipping to a DC, but it's being cross-docked to the store. So basically the DC is not doing anything with your box. It's just taking it, scanning it, and putting it to the truck that goes to that store. They don't store those shipments. It goes from one door to the other door that same day. Okay. Because of that, the PO number will be store specific. Okay, if we look at the BEG 03, on the DC PO number, the first 5 digit was the DC number. On the JIT side, it will be your store. It will be our store number. So in this case, this PO 03082 184100. Okay, 3082 is the Kmart store number. So it's either that's a Kmart or a Sears store number, and the last 6 digits is the DC PO number. Okay, if you look at BEG 06, you will see the same number as the DC PO number. Okay, you will see the DC 8937, and if you look at the last 6 digits, it matches the last 6 digits of the JIT PO number. So basically, that's the one that ties these two POs together. That's the last 6 digits. Okay, I will send you again the RFIA, which is order DUNS number. Okay, and the N1BY. The N1BY is the bill to. Basically, it's being billed to store number 3082. The N1ST, again, the last 4 digit is where you're shipping it to. Oops. If you look at it, it says 8937. It doesn't match your PO number, right? But it matched the DC PO number because that's where you're shipping it to. You're shipping it to the DC. You're just marking it to the store. So all your labels will say, oh, this is marked for store 3082. Do you have any questions on that one? Because that's the one that's confusing on the JIT side. Okay. So next, again, will be the N1RE, which will be your pay DUNS number. I'm sorry. And then, same thing. I will send you the item number, the UPC, or the shipping G10 if that thing is available. For JIT, you probably will have hundreds of POs in one batch, because basically you're shipping to a DC, but it's marked for store. So that means I have a PO for each of the store, even though it's shipping to the same DC. So you expect to receive 300, 400, or even 1,000 POs in one batch for JIT orders. Okay, for the 856 for JIT, it's again, it's the same thing. Whatever I sent in the 856, it needs to be sent back on the 850. It needs to be sent back on the 856. On the JIT side, we only support a pick and pack structure. We don't support no pack. The reason why is, I'm going to tell you that later when I get to that segment. So for a pick and pack, I need to have a code of 0001 on the BSN05. Again, we're asking you to send me the PER for your contact, the N1SF and the N1ST. So both of these segments comes from the 850. The PRF is the PO number. Again, RFIA is order done, and the KSN. Okay. I'm sorry. Let me look at the next slide. Okay. For JIT, the important part of the JIT is that UCC 128. All cartons needs to be labeled, and it needs to have that 128 label. And that 128 label needs to match whatever you sent in the 856. So if you look at that MAN GM, that MAN GM is the UCC 128. So that's basically the license plate for each carton. So when a carton arrives at DC, when they scan this 128, they know which ASN to get and which this carton belongs to. Basically, it's going to be automatic. Nobody will touch it. When they put that cart in the conveyor, when they scan that 128, the system will know, oh, it needs to go to this store, so I will go move this carton to this, basically, this dock door, where that store will be serviced out of. So this is just showing you that the BEG on the 850, BEG03, that's the PO number that needs to be sent in the PRF segment of the 856. Any questions on the 856, 850 for JIT? All right. Now let's talk about the 810. Now the 810 will be a little bit confusing, and this is almost the issue with JIT vendors, because on the Kmart JIT ASN, we need you to roll up by the DC PO number. Okay. So I'll go back one slide. So I told you can receive hundreds of POs for a JIT PO, right? If you look at this slide, I have, I don't know, 2, 4, 6, 8. I got 12 POs, 12 separate POs, but if you look at BEG06, it's all the same number. It's shipping to the same DC 8937. Even if you get 500 POs, it might be shipping to just one of my DC. When you invoice us, you don't invoice us for each store. You invoice us on the DC level. So if you look at the invoice, there's a PO number on the BIG segment. You need to send us the DC PO number that was sent on the BEG06. So basically, you need to roll up everything. You need to sum up the ship quantity or the invoice quantity in the 810. So if we ordered, I'll just make it easy. If there's 500 JIT POs, I ordered one. On your invoice, I need to see one invoice for DC 8937 with an invoice quantity of 500. Even though your ASN and the PO says I got one for each of the store, because this is JIT, the invoice needs to be consolidated to the DC level, So your invoice quantity needs to be summed up or consolidated on the DC level. Do you guys have any questions on that one? Okay, so here's a good example of how the invoice should be sent to us. So purchase order, if you see, I don't know, 10, 12 lines, different BEG03, meaning I got different POs per store. But if you look at BEG06, all BEG06 are the same. It's all shipping to 8937. So when you go invoice us, we should only see one invoice with all the ordered quantity or shipped quantity for all of those POs summed up into one invoice number. All right, let's go to the next slide. So we're done with all those basics. The next slide is just a functional, the EDI 997, which is the acknowledgement. So we expect that once we send you an 850 or an 860, you guys should respond to us with a 997 acknowledging that you received that file. On the same way, if I receive an 856 and an 810, I will send you a 997 saying I received your 856 and 810. It will also tell you if we accepted or rejected your ASN based on the EDI standards. Okay, so there's two validations: EDI standard and the data. The 997 is only for EDI standard. It's not validating data, meaning I will not check if you're sending me the correct KSN number or you're sending me the correct ship quantity. I'm just validating if you're meeting my EDI standards. So here's an example of how the 997 look like. If the AK901 is A, it means that we accepted what you sent. If it's an R, we rejected, and if it's a P, it says partial. And if there's a rejection or a partial acknowledgement, we will send you an email to whatever email address that we have in our system. That's why we request that you guys send us the PER segment so we can update our system with the correct email address. Okay, so again, email addresses, if you got questions, if you get a rejected 997, I got a 24-hour support team that handles any questions. So you can always send us an email and somebody will get back to you. When we ordered assortments or pre-pack on the Sears side, on our order writing system, we don't really know the components of that item. What we will send you on the purchase order is basically the assortment number and not its component. So when you send back the 856 or the 810, it should always be on the assortment level or assortment item number. So just best practices for the 810. Again, the N1RE was sent in the EDI 850. You just need to send it back in the EDI 810 because that's your pay DUNS number. We will pay off based on that pay DUNS number. If you guys send us the wrong pay DUNS number, that invoice will never get paid because it will never match anything on the accounts payable side. The KSN number needs to be correct. It needs to match the 850. And if you're a JIT vendor, you must sum up that invoice at the DC level. You cannot send me an invoice at the store level. Okay, so if there's any failure, I mentioned this before, I mean, there's two checks. First one is the EDI translation error, which is mine. If your EDI 810 is non-compliant, I will reject it. I will send you a rejected 997, and I will follow up with an email explaining why we rejected that 810. Now, if there's a data issue, you need to contact accounts payable directly. If you don't see your invoice in Workbench, which you guys can look if the status of your invoice, you need to contact AP directly, and there's their phone number and their email addresses. I mean, common reasons why your invoice are failing or not getting paid is, again, your pay downs number, you're sending me the wrong KSN, your ship to is wrong, or some other the CAD and the SAC is basically you're not following my EDI guidelines if you're not sending it correctly. Now for the 856, the best practices. Okay. We always tell our vendor that we need the ASN as soon as they close the door of that trailer. So as soon as you can send me the ASN, it will be better for you, because if there's any errors, you will have time to correct those errors. Because, I mean, we need the ASN before that shipment arrives at the DC gate. So it's a DC gate, not when the DC receive it. So the DC might take a couple of days before they receive that shipment, but what we look at is when that shipment arrives at the gate. So we need that ASN before that shipment arrives at the gate. The ASN needs to be per DC, not per truckload, which means most of our vendors, if it's not a big shipment, they go to a flow-through center. So the ASN needs to be at the DC level and not to the flow-through, because the flow-through doesn't use the ASN. Okay, now for JIT, you return to me whatever's in the 850, but when you look at the ShipSmart, it will be on your DCPO level. And also, if it's JIT, if there's no ASN, we cannot process that shipment. So what's going to happen if there's no ASN, we will return that shipment to the vendor, to you guys at your own expense. We will try to correct it, but if we can't get a good ASN for a certain number of days, then there will be a decision that that shipment will be returned. Again, there's two checks on the 856. It's first level, it's my EDI translator, same as the 810. We will send you a 997 and an email. And if there's any application errors, just send an email to Sears EDI, and also we will try to notify you through an email that the email will come from a B object. It will tell you what's wrong with your ASN. Some common reasons why the ASN is failing. We receive your ASN late, so the error message you receive is PO fully receipted, which means your ASN was late. Or invalid PO, you're not giving me the correct PO number, or you're not giving me the correct ship to. Other ones is, again, unit of measure, you're not giving me, if I order in inches, it has to be in inches.
So this is a slide that I added as a call out from our inventory analysts. If you're communicating with them and you're trying to tell them you're having some issues, they have no clue what you're referring to when you refer to your 856 or your 860. So be sure when you're communicating with your inventory analyst that you actually use your PO numbers to communicate with them, as well as relevant purchase information like your KSNs. Otherwise, your inventory analyst is not going to know what's going on. They're not going to understand what the 856, 860, 810s are, and it's just going to confuse them and delay any assistance that they might be able to provide for you.
Okay, so just key points to remember. Your 11-digit your pay downs number. Some systems internally within us, like that Workbench or IMA, sometimes it drops the leading zeros. So just be aware that whatever is in the 850 needs to be sent back again in the 856 and 810, even though it's kind of different than what you see in Workbench or IMA. Okay. The 997 is just telling you that we received it, that we didn't process it all the way through the system because there's multiple validation being done. Okay. For any EDI questions, as long as it's EDI related, just send it to Sears EDI. This is my support mailbox, and somebody's looking at this. You expect a response within 5-15 minutes if you send an email to this mailbox. I think that's it.
Yep. And if you give me 1 second, I'm going to unmute everyone's phones. And if you could please make sure that your phone is on mute when you're not speaking, that would be great. That's why I had to put it on mute in the first place. So I'm unmuting right now.
All participants are now in interactive talk mode.
So does anyone have any questions for Roy at all as far as EDI is concerned? Okay, if not, you guys can go ahead and have a great day. Like I said, we'll hang on the line for a couple more minutes in case you think of something after the fact or you just want to wait to talk to us. We will be on the line for just a couple more minutes. Otherwise, have a great day.